Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York.
Hello, and welcome to this Monday edition of the Bluegrass Brooklyn podcast. I'm your host, Liz Wolfe, and in these editions, we explore topics that are related to and supporting our favorite music, bluegrass. Enjoy the show. Bruce Molsky.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on our show.
It's great to be here. It's great to see you in two dimensions on my screen. And I'm excited to chat with you today.
Well, you are a repeat visitor. We did get to hear from you a bit when my co-host Mike went to Fiddle Hell, of course. So we already got a little taste of you. And, you know, your name just keeps popping up as I interview other people. They say things like, yeah, I played with him, or Bruce Molsky produced my album, or I learned something from him. So your name just kept popping up. And, of course, you're going to be playing at the Westchester Bluegrass Club on Sunday, January 18th at 3 o'clock. And I saw your name on that list, and I said, I would love to get to know Bruce a bit more. So this is what I know about you so far. You're a trad-based multi-instrumentalist. You play the fiddle, you play the banjo, you play the guitar, you sing. Are there other instruments too?
Not that I would play in public. I'm a miserable mandolin player.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting because a lot of times the fiddle and mandolin are like first cousins. And so
There are a lot of reasons that I should be a better mandolin player, but having practiced is not one of them.
Okay. Dang, that practice keeps coming up.
Yeah, I know it. I know it.
But, you know, that is one question that I would have for you as I was preparing for this interview is multi-instrumentalists are very interesting to me in that I feel like, and when I say that, I mean at the level to which you are, right? So I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I have a guitar. I'm a singer. That's my most developed skill. I also play the bass. I would not call myself on any of those, except perhaps singing, of any kind of level of, you know, it's easy enough to pick up the bass and translate skills. But to become accomplished to the level to which you have on these instruments, what does it take to do that?
Oh, boy. I think one thing that has become apparent to me, having played all these instruments for all this time, is that once you have the basic skills on all of them, playing one instrument informs how you play on the others. And I think anybody that plays multiple instruments knows that. And it's not just the music theory thing or, you know, knowing how chords move or melody scales or modes, but it's the muscle memory and how you present a melody on the instrument. And so learning melodies, it becomes muscle memory thing. But I find if I'm in good practice on one instrument, then I'm better off when I pick up the others, which of course helps when you're playing a solo concert. There's never enough time to warm up on all three instruments and your voice and everything else after a sound check and trying to jam in time for a piece of pizza or whatever before you play. Right. So there's that. And I think for me, I mean, I started out on guitar, and guitar is kind of the kind of, for me, that's kind of a grounding thing, even if it's not the instrument I have in my hand, because I can move chords around in a certain way on the guitar. And I'm a chord-based player, and that's something I hear on all my instruments when I'm playing. There are people who are melody-based players, which is great. It's just another approach. For me, I need to know what chord is playing in the background, even if there isn't one. And that translates to all three instruments. But I think having started on the guitar and played it exclusively when I was a teenager, by the time I picked up the banjo and then the fiddle in the same year, a few years later, just the idea of putting music on an instrument in the most general kind of way made sense to me. And I was very serious about the fiddle. I was obsessive. And then same thing on the banjo. So those things existed separately for a while, and then it kind of all came together. I can't explain it any better than that.
And that is very interesting to me, to hear you say that you're hearing the chords behind the fiddle, because as a jam leader and a guitar player and a person who is helping a fiddler to lead a song in a jam, a lot of times I will hear them shrug their shoulders, and I'll say, what are the chords? And they'll shrug their shoulders and say, I don't know. Almost like a point of pride sometimes, I think. Right?
Yeah. Well, I teach at Berklee College of Music. I'm what they call the visiting scholar in the tradition, in the American Roots Music program. And I work with a lot of fiddlers who are melody-based players, and some of them really need to take a lesson on the guitar or the piano just so they know how to move chords. Because as soon as you start hearing that to underpin a piece of music, some of the great players, single note kind of players, some of the Midwestern fiddlers, they can play an unaccompanied piece, just single note melody, and you can hear what the chords ought to be because they're thinking them. And it affects intonation, tonality, tone, dynamics, everything. None of the elements of music to me exist solely by themselves. And I'm always thinking about, as a solo musician, how do you create a complete piece of music on one instrument, and what do those things consist of? These are deep dives. We could be here for hours, you know.
Yeah, I'm loving it, actually. And so what would your advice be to a fiddle player who might be listening to this, who doesn't know the chords or doesn't want to play the guitar?
Play what makes sense to you. I mean, I'm just representing one way of looking at the instrument. They can also sign up for lessons with me on Peghead Nation, because I go through all that stuff.
Okay.
We have about 140 tunes, fiddle tunes up there, and they're broken down: first melody and then accompaniment, double stops. And some of them have chord charts. If you don't feel like playing the chords, get somebody to play them. You know, find a playing partner. You know, I mean, the best music you're going to play is with somebody sitting in the same room as you. That's the best. And of course, having in any style you play, whether it's folk music or jazz or rock or anything, timing is everything. And my good friend and colleague, Tony Trishka, who I've played a lot of gigs with over the years, when he gets to a theater, he disappears himself for about 10 minutes. He just plays to a metronome. And it's just to lock himself into thinking about timing. So if you're going to use an external device to help your playing, a metronome is a good one. I was lucky enough to meet some of the musicians that play old-time music that grew up before World War II, and one of them was a guy named Paul Sutphin, who I knew for a long time, and he was from Surrey County, North Carolina. And he's a guitar player. And when I first met him, of course, I'm from the Bronx, and I was a lot closer to the Bronx back then. And he looked at me. We played some tunes together, and he looked at me and said, "Boy, you got time." And first thing was I wanted to look at my watch, but it was a compliment, and it was a big compliment to me, and it made me realize how important good, solid time is when you play.
And how old were you then?
Maybe 20, 21.
Okay. I'm always so interested in how much of expertise comes from what you would call talent, and how much comes from practice.
Boy, that's a tough one. I think anybody that aspires to play needs to not worry so much about whether they're talented or not, because we're all our own worst enemies when it comes to rating ourselves. If you love to play, play. And for me, my own preference, I'd rather hear somebody playing a simple piece of music with feeling and expression and a comfort level than hearing somebody try and impress me at the edge of their virtuosity. That completely is not interesting to me. And maybe that's why I like folk music. I mean, I'm a big jazz buff, and I love listening to styles of music that I would never even think about trying to play, because anybody that plays an instrument knows that when you play a recording, if you're a musician of any kind, the first automatic thing that most of us do is to try and figure out how to play it. And we miss the expression and the story. So I love listening to things and just letting it just kind of skate over me and not worry about the technicalities of it. Because that's what we're all after. what we're doing is trying to tell a story with an instrument, or even just get through the tune.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you brought up this aspect of let's play something simple with feeling versus having some virtuosity and skill. I feel like things keep getting faster. Like you look at some of the...
Well, you're with the Westchester Bluegrass Club. The Bluegrassers like to play fast.
They
all love Del McCurry. Come on.
What is up with that? I saw Trey Hensley play at the Podunk Festival last summer.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing to watch. So, obvious command of the instrument. Mm-hmm. But it's a little bit like once we broke that 4-minute mile, then everybody just wanted to run that fast. So, yeah, I'm curious because you have had a span of some years in the industry. So what's your perspective on this
tempo?
Idea?
I think I play some things really fast. I'll never play as fast as Jason Carter or somebody like that. But it's not a requirement of the styles that I play. Mm-hmm. And it's not something that I think it's, just respect to anybody that can do it if that's part of their particular individual voice. Certainly part of bluegrass music. I don't know. I would never pass judgment on what people like. It's a great thing to hear 200 beats a minute when everybody's been drinking all night and it's dark outside at a bluegrass convention. Then it fits great,
Yes, that's right.
But for me, I've done a lot of different things musically and as far as collaboration style-wise. And none of the music that I play really, or very little of it, lends itself to be going as fast as possible. Mm. And you can't get all the notes. I like double stops. I like swinging the bow around and picking up rhythmic beats in between melody notes. And you have to leave a lot of that stuff behind. Just it's physically impossible after you playing at a certain speed.
Yeah.
Once again, it's about being comfortable and expressing yourself. And I'm going in the weeds here, but years ago I went to a festival in California called the Live Oak Music Festival. And two of at that time, the great Hammond B3 jazz players did a collaborative concert together. They had 2 Hammond B3 organs on the stage with a great backup band. And it was Joey DeFrancesco and Jimmy Smith, who of course was the godfather of Hammond B3. And DeFrancesco was much younger, and of course he still had something to prove, and he was amazing. And he played the most complicated, busy, crazy solo, and it was great. The audience went nuts. And then it was Jimmy Smith's turn. And he just turned and he looked at Joey DeFrancesco and he smiled while the band was playing. And he just played one note for about 5 bars. And he was making a statement, and it was really kind of beautiful because it wasn't condescending at all. He was just like, "Hey, young'un, check this out." And it was very cool.
So, following up on that, you've had an amazing variety of musical experiences. You've not only playing the banjo, fiddle, and guitar, and doing solo shows, and playing with Daryl Anger and others that you've mentioned, but you're also producing albums and helping to arrange music and teaching and baking bread, evidently, and collecting fountain pens. That's all up on the internet. So there you go.
Yeah, I like doing all that stuff. Music takes you in a lot of directions. I love teaching. Just incredible, great students coming through my classroom at Berkeley College and trying to hand to them what was handed to me by people older than me. So the teaching thing, a good teacher to me is also a good student. I learn from my students. Just seeing their approach, just seeing all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. Seeing when they're craning their neck forward too much and saying, "How long has your neck hurt you?" Just little stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'm fed by experiences with other musicians, and not just Daryl or Brittany, who I've known since she was a kid, but collaborations with musicians from different countries. I've done a lot of work in Scandinavia with my pal Ollie Muller, and guesting with great players, Elika Frizzell, and I could just name a bunch of names, but a lot of that is the fun for me, and that stokes my fire. That gives me ideas.
And you're full bore on right now. You're playing, you got tours coming up all spring. I saw you were like down in New Orleans and then back to Beacon, and you're just all over the place.
Yep.
Does that ever get tiring?
No, I kind of thrive on exhaustion. I'm lucky that way. And I love to work. And I love to put myself out there, do a bunch of stuff, and then come home and enjoy my time with Audrey. And after a few days, she'll say, "Aren't you going on tour soon?" But it's only because I like to stay busy, and there's lots to do. I've been playing music since I was 11, and I'm still as inspired to play it and love it probably more now than I did then. So I'm lucky.
And would you say that part of that continued inspiration is coming from the success that you have with it?
I mean, sure, everybody has an ego. But I can honestly say for me, it's just discovering things on the instruments that gives me, arranging a piece of music on guitar for me, because I'm a fingerstyle player, which I'll be doing a lot of in the concert. But I love the process when I find a piece of music that feels like it fits in my fingerstyle playing. I love making an exercise of how do I move this bass line against this melody, and how do you make the timing work, and how do you put the right kind of groove in it. And a lot of times I go back to my heroes when I was first learning to play, like Joseph Spence, the great Bahamian guitar player, or Doc Watson. I think being a good musician in a trad style is also putting those references from your heroes into your own playing and moving it forward. And in that sense, I love arranging music in new ways for myself. My pandemic project was an all-guitar CD called Everywhere You Go, and it ended up being music from all over the world, most of which wasn't even intended to be played on the guitar in the first place. But you find a nice melody, and you decide what chords go underneath it, and you figure out how to play all the right notes at the same time at any point in time to put it all together. You figure out how to get rhythm in there, and if you're lucky enough to have rhythm and chord movement and a cool melody and something to sing, then you got a complete piece of music. That's kind of the fun part for me.
Yeah, I listened to a bit of that also. It was very compelling.
Thank you.
Yeah. And by success, I also mean not just notoriety or even financial success or albums on the top 10 or any of those things that may or may not be important or part of your life. As success meaning the gaining of the greatest amount of pleasure out of playing. The reason I'm bringing it up is because, again, from where I stand, I meet a lot of newer musicians, people who are just coming to the jam. Our jams are very beginner friendly or open, slow jam friendly. So a lot of people come and, hey, I remember that day when I was like, I don't have any idea what's going on right now. And feeling like when you do your first song or when you, I led a song and it was successful.
Yeah.
Then, it's an entryway into an experience. And so I think the more of those positive experiences you can have, the more you can expand your joy around music.
And it also, lessen your fear of trying new things. I played with a band called Mosaic, and it was two great Irish musicians, Andy Irvine and Donald Lunny, who some of your listeners might know from the group Planxty. They were really important trendsetters in Irish traditional music in the 1970s. And a Dutch guy named Rens van der Zalm, who's probably one of the most brilliant accompanists I've ever met. And Nicola Parov, who's a multi-instrumentalist from Hungary. And when we first all got together, it was Andy's idea. Andy sent some music around, and I got lazy. And I thought, it's just folk music. I'll figure it out when I get there. Well, I got there and discovered I didn't know the first thing about Eastern European music, or the timing of it, or how to play things in 11/16 or 7/8. The things that musicians jokingly call socket wrench timings. And that was trial by fire. But once it started to make sense, that was another new kind of avenue. And I'm playing a concert in a few weeks with my old pal Beppe Gambetta, and we love to play a Bulgarian Rechenitsa, which is in 7/8, on 2 guitars, and that's kicking my butt. I got to get back and practice on it again, and it's exciting, you know. You look forward to these things.
Constantly being challenged, and that's what's interesting to me, is that at no matter what level you might get to, there are more challenges. There are other styles of music. Of course, being a bluegrass podcast, I know that you spent your time in the bluegrass circles as well.
Very much. Yeah.
And so tell us about your experience in that world, how it contrasts with your old time world. Or your other world.
It's a different music, and you know, but it's related enough to where, of course, the melodies are all in similar keys, and a lot of the bluegrass music, bluegrass songs were adapted from old time melodies, because a lot of the greats came from that, and some of it went in the other direction too. Some of the players that I really looked up to from North Carolina when I first started to play, they were playing head over heels in love with you, but old time style, because they were listening to bluegrass music on the Grand Ole Opry, and they were playing it their own way. And of course, then you had people like Arthur Smith, who had one foot in bluegrass and one foot in old time during earlier radio and stuff. My experiences in bluegrass music, Tony Trishka has been a colleague and a dear friend for many, many years, and we do a lot of duet shows. We did one for the Westchester Bluegrass Club a while back. And it's great because in old time music we don't solo barely at all. In bluegrass you do, and so the form of the music has to be a little bit different. And of course I can't drop out completely in the middle of a tune when Tony's taking a solo, but it's an interesting exercise to see how to support a bluegrass banjo player who's playing a solo with a fiddle, you know. And that's a fun thing, and I kind of got my own way of doing that. And through Tony I've met a lot of people, sat in with people who I really love. Special Consensus is one. Greg Cahill is I have so much respect for him. He's been running that band for something like 50 years and brought a lot of great young players through there. And I got up on stage with him a couple of years ago at the Snowy Grass Festival in Estes Park, Colorado. And of course, we played the tune. I knew the tune, and they looked at me, and it was my turn to solo. And I was like, oh crap, now what do I do? So I just played the melody loudly and put more rhythm in it. And everybody clapped, and it was great, But it's fun. It's fun to be willing to put yourself out on a limb in those kind of situations. It's fun.
It's partly perception, right? I mean, it's partly it's all about the listening on the other side of it.
Yeah. But we're really getting into kind of the heavy side of being a musician, all the back end stuff that you really don't even want your audience to hear. I mean, if you come to the concert, and I hope you will, I'm going to be playing fiddle, banjo, and guitar, and I'm going to be singing and doing all that stuff we've been talking about for the last half hour, but you won't notice. You'll just hear the music. I'm hoping that it will just wash over you. I love to play solo for an audience. It's just like being in a room full of like-minded, nice people. It's different than playing with a band. Anybody who's played for a concert knows that half of the energy that you put out is that energy that you got from the audience's enthusiasm. So I'm psyched.
Well, it's a great venue. It's certainly a wonderful place, easy enough to get to from New York City, and they have wonderful musicians coming through there, and your concert will be no exception, I'm sure.
That'll be fun.
So, for someone who's spent as much time as you have in the world of music and learning and honing your skills on these instruments, is there anything that you think to yourself, someday I'll get to doing this thing?
Well, if I say no, that's going to sound like I feel like I know everything, and I don't. No, I'm just looking for the next new interesting thing to try, or an interesting person to play with, or place to be. I'm going to be in a bunch of different countries in 2026, and hope that as an American that I'm welcome. Each experience is going to be different. Daryl and I are touring in the UK this fall. I'm going to be just found out I'm going to be in Italy for a really nice camp.
Ooh, very nice.
In Tuscany, and I'm going to Belgium. Some of your listeners might be familiar with Laura Cortese. She's a wonderful fiddler and singer and dancer, and we're doing a little tour with her. And then Ollie Muller and I are touring in Sweden and Norway. possibly a couple of times. And this is my idea of saying, oh, I'm not going to travel so much this year. But opportunities come up, and you want to pass them by.
Especially if they're in Italy, in Tuscany, or in other places that are
too
really cool to go to.
That too. If you don't mind schlepping 100 pounds of gear around to get from place to place, it's really nice when you get there.
Well, that's a good point. So you've got to schlep a banjo, a guitar, and a fiddle. Do you take all of them with you?
It depends on the situation. If it's solo, then yes. And I have flight cases. I have to say the airlines broke my guitar this year. 3 times in 35 years. I figure that's not bad. When you get where you're going, is always a worthy reward. Makes it all worth it.
Well, it will be very fun to have you playing for us up at the Westchester Bluegrass Club. Again, that's on the 18th at 3 o'clock. And Bruce, I'm so happy that you were able to join today and thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, thanks, Liz. And I'll promise to play more and talk less at the concert. So.
Well, we'll have lots of good music for people to listen to, and all you have to do is go online. You can find Bruce on YouTube, on his website, brucemolsky.com.
Yep.
So lots of good ways to get to know Bruce. And of course, if you're interested in lessons, Peghead Nation, or you can become a student at Berkeley College. And
yeah, that's a heavy lift, but it's a wonderful place. Yeah, I do have a mailing list. If you go to my website, just ask to get on the mailing list. I will not bombard you with stuff, but I put out a newsletter every once in a while. And I just mostly just like to hear from people and stay in touch. So yeah. Also, for any bread bakers, or you don't have to be a bread baker. If you like to bake and you like roots music, it doesn't have to be bread. I started a Facebook group called Fiddle and Dough, where we've been posting all of our bakes along with musical instruments for years. We have about 1,900 members, and it's very funny and fun and ego-free. And I'm sure I've posted as many baking failures as I have successes, just asking for advice. So that's a fun thing too.
I looked it up. It's on Facebook. People can find it. And yeah, there's lots of pictures of fiddles with gingerbread houses and
all kinds of stuff.
Well, thank you again for joining. And to all of our listeners, you know where to find Bruce, brucemolsky.com, or you can come on up to the Westchester Bluegrass Club to meet him in person.
Absolutely. Come one, come all. Thank you, Liz. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Liz Wolfe. Please subscribe to our podcast and follow us on our social media so you never miss an episode. You can find us online at bluegrassbrooklyn.com. Brooklyn is spelled BKLYN. See you around the jam circle.
Buddy, we'll drink and smoke. Woman, don't you weep for me. My hands can't fiddle and my heart's been broke. You damned old piney mountain. Lost my fingers in the Galax mill. Buddy, sing a sad old song. And my heart got broke in the Upine Hills. Lord, and my time ain't long. I started out to log it.